One of the main ways that evolutionists try to claim the creation science is not science is by insisting that science only allows for naturalistic explanations. This is usually justified by claiming that supernatural explanations are not falsifiable. The real reason for insisting on only naturalistic explanations is the fact that only naturalistic explanations are acceptable to atheists, and they seem to have undue influence within the establishment scientific community. It is actually quite easy to provide an example of how a supernatural explanation can be falsifiable. Imagine a situation where somebody diagnosed with appendicitis goes to a faith healer. The faith healer does his thing, and the person's pain goes away. Now, in this case, the idea that the person was supernaturally healed of the appendicitis makes the prediction that the person would live remaining pain-free. However, if the person ended up dying of a ruptured appendix, it would falsify the claim that he was supernaturally healed. The point is that a supernatural hypothesis can be falsified as long as it would leave some evidence in the physical world. Consequently, most alleged haunting phenomenon, along with most types of alleged spiritual contacts, are not falsifiable because the person simply saw or heard something, but it leaves nothing that can be examined. However, any case where supernatural phenomenon would result in a physical effect, it has the potential of making testable predictions. This is what makes a supernatural hypothesis falsifiable. There are several young Earth creationist theories that start with a supernatural act of God and follows it through. One such theory has God created the Earth and other heavenly bodies initially as balls of water and then transforming them to their present form. In their initial watery state, he aligned the magnetic fields of the hydrogen atoms in the water to jumpstart the magnetic field, using that to produce a starting level for the body's magnetic field. The decay of that field over time is then followed to produce predictions of what the field of each planet should be. Besides agreeing with observations of every planet in the solar system, this theory accurately predicted the magnetic field of Uranus and Neptune while explaining the unusual orientation of the magnetic fields. If these predictions had been wrong, then the theory would have been falsified. In conclusion, the point is that it is possible to produce a supernatural hypothesis that produces testable predictions. This allows the hypothesis to be falsified, meaning that you can apply the scientific method, and thus produces scientific theory based on a supernatural event. It simply has to interact with the physical world in some way. The main problem with the argument against a supernatural explanation and arguing that it is unfalsifiable is that they use an overly broad example, such as simply God did it, or something else that is so broad that even a naturalistic equivalent such as nature did it would be just as unfalsifiable. Ultimately, it can be demonstrated that if a supernatural hypothesis is specific enough and would have detectable effects, then it is possible to make testable predictions and have a falsifiable scientific theory based on a supernatural assumption.